What's kicking, everybody? We are back for another episode of Pickin' Fights. I'm joined tonight by Tom, as always, my great co-host. And we also have a very special guest with us tonight. I'm going to intro him in just 1 second, but I do want to mention, it was my birthday this past weekend, right? My birthday was Sunday, and there was no better gift that I could have gotten from the UFC on my birthday than going 5-1 picking fights. On our website, Picking Winners, I gave my 4 best bets of the night and a sick parlay, and guess what? Everything hit. So happy birthday to me. Thank you, Dana White, for making those fights so easy to pick. And, Tom, he didn't do too shabby himself either. Guy went 6-0. He finally got the edge on me. Our records are finally matching up. So I gotta be on my stuff this week because otherwise he might surpass me. But before we do,
I was going to say, I'm not going to talk about it too much. I don't want to jinx myself. Just another day at the office.
Okay. Well, make sure that you guys like and subscribe. Hit the like button to this video. If you haven't already or watching our content out there, make sure you subscribe. So now it's time to introduce this very special guest that we have with us tonight. Just to give you a little bit of history on this guy, his dad, Crafton Blaze Wallace, was a pioneer among early MMA fighters. He fought all the way back at UFC 6. He fought at Strikeforce with Chuck Norris in the crowd, just to kind of date him a little bit. And this guy hopes to be a UFC fighter soon himself. At least I hope he's a UFC fighter pretty soon. Oh, yeah. So everybody at home, say what's up to Marcellus, Master Chief Wallace. How are you, Marcellus?
I'm doing good. It was a good day to come in today. I just got off of working out. I'm feeling fresh. I'm getting ready for a fight myself.
When's your next fight? Do you have one scheduled?
Right now, nothing scheduled. I just train like there's always something coming. Stay ready for any opportunity.
Stay ready so you don't have to get ready.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I noticed in one of your last interviews, you mentioned how nothing really changes in your diet or your training regimen. You're not like some of these guys that take the month off or the week off afterwards. You're in it all the time, and I can say personally as a fan, I appreciate that because it means you are just ready to go at any given notice. Because you never know, at your stage in your career, you could be getting one of those phone calls like, hey, jump on up, man. So
exactly.
Very happy to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
What were you about to say?
Oh, no, nothing. Let's just remind myself, it's just like how my father went around his path. That's how he got in the Strikeforce, how he got in the UFC, on WCL, all these big organizations. He just constantly stayed ready. He was constantly teaching, but he was also training himself at the same time. He was running his own gym, running pretty much by himself. He had partners, but it's his main place. So he was constantly working with people and sharpening his mind and staying ready for all of the fights whenever he's ready.
Would you say that training people gives you a bit of an advantage, because not only are you in there training yourself, but you're also observing other people. You might be looking at them and saying, you know what, I like this move that this person brought into the gym, or I don't like that. Let me avoid that at all costs. Is that something you think might give you a leg up in there?
Exactly what you said. I feel like it's the biggest advantage you can have. When you're surrounded by that pretty much every day, if you work in that environment, you're constantly going to be either learning new things that are good for you or learning through good things that are bad. You never know. It could always go either way. So it's always good to be around that scene. I'm there at least twice a day, every day.
Wow. That's awesome, man. So you're absolutely dedicated, no question about it. One thing I do want to know, and Tom was, we were trying to figure out what it was. I saw your dad wearing something similar too. What is it you wear on your head after you win a fight?
Oh, it's the traditional Mongol from the Thai people up in Thailand. They wear that every time they go out there and fight. Like John Wayne Parr, you see him wearing that when he walks out to his fights. He does that all the time. Anyone that trains Muay Thai, you'll see them wearing that. They will like to impose, yo, we're all game in the striking game. Keep it ready.
That's awesome, man. It looks so old school. I was trying to think maybe it's something samurai. It definitely looked of ancient Asian culture, but now that you say it, I'm going to recognize that every time I see it. Especially next time you're wearing it, I'm going to be like, that's that Muay Thai. What is it called again? What's the actual name?
It's Mongol. We're getting ready for war. They wear that in ancient times, getting ready for war in Thailand.
That's so sick, man. The Mongol. All right, so I watched your last fight against Robert Beatty. I believe that was his name in CounterQuest.
Papi Cholo.
Yeah.
That was his name, so I'm just going with that.
Okay. Well, listen, I was really impressed by so many aspects of your game, right? I knew that you were a striker going in, because before I even saw that, I watched a couple of your kickboxing matches or Muay Thai matches, and I knew that you were a Muay Thai specialist coming into that fight. But what shocked me, and I think anybody else watching that, was that you ended that with a first-round submission victory by way of heel hook. But what were you about to say?
Ooh, you fell for that too. No, that's straight ankle.
Oh, straight ankle
right there.
Okay.
The commentary was saying the same thing, but called out by a straight ankle because the way he had a grip was like Kimura lock.
Right.
If I had it under the heel, that'd be one thing. But no, I was on the straight Achilles. That was a straight ankle lock.
I'm learning so much with you already, Marcellus. This is a great interview.
I may be a striker, but I know my submissions.
Well, the one thing I will give, in Keith's defense, I will say the angle was really hard to tell what was going on. Yeah. And actually, me and Keith were talking about this. We were listening, and we hear someone say, wrench on it or pull on it. And we couldn't figure out because of the angle and hard to see. Like, who's yelling that? Who's saying that to who? Because I couldn't tell if you were in the dominant position, he was in the dominant position, and all of a sudden the tap came out of nowhere. I mean, it was awesome to watch. It was crazy. But, like, who was yelling to tear on it?
One of my buddies in the stands, he saw I was going for that straight ankle. He sees me work it. That's pretty much one of my main moves that people always tell me, man, you got to give that move a break. You're doing that all the time. And it showed in that fight. Like, I'm constantly doing it no matter the opportunity. Because he went for it first. Mm-hmm. He went for straight ankle first. So I'm like, okay, he wants to do that. He's, like, kicking my armpit up. All right, give me that real quick. I'll lock that in. At first, Pops wanted me to get rid of it, like, give up on it. Like, no. I know it's about to break. As soon as I dropped my hip, his ankle tore. I felt it on my ribs. I tore his ankle. I told Rep, like, hey, his ankle's broken. He's like, is it broken? He's like, no. All right. Pop it again.
Wow.
So I popped it twice. He was walking fine afterwards, but I know the next day he's not going to be able to walk.
No. With all that adrenaline and everything going, I'm sure even in the moment he didn't feel it until he really felt it because you could see the pain on his face. Like,
oh, yeah.
Dude, oh, man, as soon as he tapped, I was like, this guy's hurting. He's hurting for certain. So you had a couple of insane combos there. You had one, it looked like a hook to a head kick combination that was just lethal at one point. I think that's what really started to wear this guy down and started to do damage against his chin. But then what eventually dropped him was this – it was so shocking, this counterpunch. Like watching that and then going back and watching your dad, that might have been one of his moves that he taught you. But
oh, for sure.
Was Beatty too aggressive on his feet for you? Because he was really trying to push the pace a lot. Or do you think that maybe aggression as you go forward would be the key or the path to beating you?
I think for him, when he was trying to be super aggressive, it was more like he was trying to get lucky and trying to counter me. You would see in those moments, like he'd throw like his fancy taekwondo kicks, side kicks, spin heel kicks around. But I could just tell, like I remember looking him up and finding videos. He fought like one of those sport taekwondo karate styles. Like every time he touched me, I'm like, are you like just trying to feel me out? Are you trying to hurt me? Because every time I'm kicking you, I'm feeling you out with power. I'm not touching you. I'm hurting you. So he did that. And a couple times where I came in close, he tried to go wild out with overhands or looping shots. So it's easy to tell what he's trying to do. Like, okay, he's trying to catch my chin early. No, that's not going to happen. And when he caught me with a kick, when he caught one of my kicks, I started throwing the exchanges that way. I never let people rest, catch my – even my kickboxing days, because in the rule in kickboxing, when you catch the leg in amateur, you only get one hit if you're the one catching it. But if you're the guy with the leg caught, you're allowed to throw as many times as you want. That's all I've been practicing every time I spar. Just keep throwing. Make him let go. So that's all I kept doing every time. Eventually caught him with that check hook.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely what ended the fight for him because and that was so impressive. You know, you mentioned you were hurting him and you were feeling him out. Well, hurt him you did, man. That was really impressive. So your dad had like one of the most incredible classic stand-up fighting styles that I've ever seen, putting guys down with, you know, body kicks back in the day when people were like almost afraid to go down for a body kick because they didn't want to look soft. He's putting guys down and bursting organs, it looked like.
You could tell with his style, he never wanted to go decision. He was constantly trying to get finishes. The only time I really seen him in finishes when he's dealing with a lot of grappling-based fights. Like, you remember, I don't know if you found out about him, but he fought Ben Saunders way back when he was in his 20s.
Wow.
And he was 32 when he fought him at the time.
Wow. Yeah, he had a really impressive career, man. I mean, people at home, if you have not seen Kraft and Wallace fight, first off, go look up Marcellus Wallace, but then go look up his dad because it's so cool. It's so old school. Literally one of the pioneers of the UFC. But So because your dad was so good at the stand-up game, obviously he taught you that, but did he know that, or let me put it like this, did he put a heavy emphasis on your training in the jiu-jitsu realm because he was such a heavy striker and he knew that in today's game you need that grappling aspect?
For sure. Like, if he knew my future was to get into MMA, he definitely wanted to emphasize that a lot more. Even if I was sticking to the striking game, he always knew that, okay, there could be a perfect opportunity at any moment. Let's get you ready for this as well. Like, you're super good at striking. Let's get you good at that first, then start working on something that you need to build up on over time. That's how I feel like you need to be in this game. Like, you have to be a specialist at least in one aspect and still be learning the other ones. And even if it's not just as good, it is up there.
Right. And another thing I noticed about your dad, and I'm curious if you feel the same way, when he would score a knockdown in his kickboxing matches, a lot of the times what I would see him do was immediately start working the crowd, jumping around, like getting the crowd hyped and the crowd going. Is that something that you see yourself doing going forward?
The battle of mental warfare. He's going in with the crowd. He's making the guy know that, hey, I have this fight in the bag. Like, he knows, like, you're about to go.
That's so cool, man. So you got to come up with like a signature move like that too. I haven't really seen it in your previous fights, but if you have some sort of signature in the back, I know your nickname is Master Chief. You clearly love Halo. If there's maybe some like load the gun or I don't know, something like that really ties the whole thing back together, I would just absolutely love to see that out of you at some point.
I'm sure. I'd have to think about that a lot because I'm just like always on task. Like, I celebrate. You only got to see me do like be quiet because Beatty was talking about me this whole time. I didn't really know much of what he was saying, but like I said in previous interviews, like, I don't care what he's saying. Like, I have a job to do. Like, just like the chief, I got my mission. Time to go get it done.
I love that. That's so tough, man. So I'm curious, what is the best piece of advice that either your dad has given you or someone, that's trained you in your life? What's the best piece of advice you've gotten throughout your fighting career?
And to be honest, when it comes to, I've gotten so many pieces of advice, but I would say like the best one is just like train smart. Like, know when it's time to like go crazy in training, and then there's times to just go pace yourself and be smart, because I've always had a compromise when it comes to fight training all the time. Like, in this last fight, I pretty much went in there with one arm. I messed up my arm in a jiu-jitsu practice one night. I got my arm cranked super hard, but on the brown belts, like, I thought I was fighting it pretty good, but like, nope, that's not what happened. So I couldn't punch for at least 2 or 3 weeks. In the week of that fight, that was our true test. That fight, like, could I punch with that right hand? But luckily, I didn't need it. All I needed was that left hook.
Oh man, that left hook, dude! I can't stop running that back in my head. It was so impressive, man. So when do you think Malcolm's going to make his MMA debut? Your brother?
Honestly, when he gets more like settled down, like he's still living the young dream, doing what he wants to do right now. He's building himself up. Eventually, he wants to get back into training like serious, but he'll get there.
Yeah, you need your youth. You got to experience, the young party lifestyle, because what happens to a lot of guys, I think, we were speaking pre-recording about Conor McGregor. I feel like he's kind of experiencing now that later in life, let me be a party boy, let me go and do all the crazy stuff. So if you get that side out of you when you're young, then hopefully when you make your career, you're not as crazy and as, you're not that guy anymore.
No.
So being your nickname is Master Chief, which of the Halo games is your favorite?
Oh, man. I'm going to go with the one I probably made the most memories with, Halo 3.
Yeah.
Halo 3 is number one.
Back in those Xbox 360 days, coming home after school, putting on the headset.
Of course.
Yeah, dude, I miss Halo 3. It was between that and Modern Warfare 2. I would just switch back and forth all the time.
You can always jump back on MCC.
Yeah.
They got the entire collection. There you go.
Yeah. How's the dog breeding going? I know you do, what is it, Naples' Finest Frenchies. How's that going for you?
Yeah, they were doing pretty good. Right now, I'm still waiting on the little one, the youngest one, to get in the heat. And the oldest one, she might be coming around pretty soon in heat. So it's been going pretty good. My partner's been busy with his main dog that he breeds with all the time. And he's got a couple of fluffies on the line too. So we've been pretty packing. That's
a really cool side gig. You talk to a lot of fighters and maybe they work in an office. Like our buddy Pat Ball was on here a few weeks ago, and he was in the office like 9 to 5 doing his thing. But you are literally training nonstop, and then you breed dogs as your side gig. I find that so impressive, man.
Oh, yeah.
Might have to check.
Right, that's what you see a lot of fighters doing lately. I've been watching Cody Garbrandt. He'd be getting in that business too. I don't know if Rumble Johnson's really jumping on that, but I could see just like the marketing of having like a bull of any breed, like Frenchie or just Bulldog in general. People are jumping on that. So I figured let's just jump on that business.
Yeah, they are like a marquee dog right now. I personally myself would like a Bull Terrier. Those are nice looking dogs. They're kind of weird looking, but I don't know. They're cute to me. I like them. That's awesome, though, man. So when you do eventually make either, I personally would love to see you in the UFC, as I've said. Maybe you get the call from Bellator first or LFA. But when you do make that jump to the next level of your career, do you think that you'll be staying at welterweight? Is this like a natural weight for you? Or do you see yourself maybe moving around weight classes a little bit?
No, I like 170, but I also like 155 too. But I just feel in the amateur leagues, like my father's a big emphasis on this. Like, if you're at amateur level, you shouldn't have to worry about cutting weight so much. One, you're not really getting paid unless you have like some good sponsorship deal. So you shouldn't really be worried about killing yourself this early. Save all that when you jump into the big leagues, like you just said, like Bellator, UFC, and jump in on those divisions that you feel comfortable. You start training in those divisions, but you get better as you go up, not while you're down here and you're killing your body too early.
That's really smart. That's a really good way to put it, because we've had a few other amateur guys on here before, and one of them was cutting weight so hard for like weeks and weeks and weeks ahead of his fight that I followed him for many years on Instagram. I actually went to high school with him, and he looked like a completely different person. But I will say, for you, 170 looks like a natural weight.
Oh yeah. I'm still pulling on. We're really trying to work on putting mass on me as well. So I can't stay skinny forever. But even still, I like my agility and like my speed. So I want to keep that as I'm gaining muscle mass going up that way.
Yeah, man, you move so fast. It's really it's so impressive. So I got one last request from you. It's not so much of a question, but listen, every podcast needs that viral moment, right? Like, call out one UFC welterweight that you think you could beat right now. And be prepared. This might be all over Twitter, but like, you got to call your shot right now. Hopefully one of those guys like Dana White or Sean Shelby sees it and says, you know what, we've got a legacy guy here. His dad was one of our first. Let's get him in here and make this fight happen. Your call out right now.
Honestly, a good little call right now. Obviously, I think the easiest way to get in there is to fight Mickey Gall. We were just talking about him recently, but I feel like he's the guy. Like, if I want to jump in, if you said 170 would be the match, I would take him at 170. There are some other names, so I'm going to keep him low for right now.
I would love to see that. I would love to see that matchup. I really think that would be a great matchup for you. We'll jump into talking about Mickey Gall in just a little bit and my opinions on him, but I will say I love that call out. Thank you very much for that.
No
so
problem.
Do you have anything you want to say before we jump into the main card? The floor is yours.
No, pretty much. Like, I'm just happy to have this opportunity right here. I'm glad I was able to get out here and have an opportunity to bring my name out even more. So you're really helping me with that. I appreciate you guys reaching out to me.
Well, we're very happy to have you here. Ditto. We are extremely happy to have Marcellus, Master Chief Wallace, on our show with us tonight. And we can't wait to put this out for the world to see it. So now we're going to jump into our picks for UFC Vegas 32, Sandhagen versus Dillashaw. I don't have any prelim locks for this one. Originally, mine was going to be Chris Dawkins, but, unfortunately, sign of the times, he got COVID. That's how it goes nowadays. But, Tom, do you have any prelim locks for us on this one?
Kind of. Yeah, I have a couple. The first one I want to go with, and I'll go by fight order. This one that I really want to see what happens at the weigh-ins before I want to call it a lock. But if Soraya Eubanks, Sarge, comes in and she has a good weight cut, 125 has always been the weight that she really, really excelled at, but she had a hard time getting down to 125. At 135, the people were just a little bit too big for her, and that's where we saw her pick up some of her losses. She's now coming back down. She's fighting at 125. She's fighting Elise Reed here, and I think if she has a good weight cut and she feels comfortable at that 125 weight, I don't think this is going to be much of a fight. I think Sarge is really going to take her. Elise Reed is coming. This is her first fight. She's taking it on short notice. She's the smaller opponent. She's coming up from 115 to 125 against a much bigger Sarge. I really like Soraya Eubanks as long as that weight cut isn't too bad. And now I also want to give this caveat. This is a thing that I'm not going to say who does it, but we all know that some do it, that they purposefully miss weight by 3, 4, 5 pounds. They don't push themselves as hard to make the weight. Then they get into the cage a little bit heavier, and they have a little bit better of a time in there. For me, I would say I really want to see how Soraya Eubanks looks on the scale. If she looks comfortable, even if she's a little bit over, I'm still comfortable locking her in. If she's getting on there and she looks like Khabib towards the end where he needs people to hang up, or if they need the curtain of shame, I really would stay away from her. And I would stay away from that fight in general. I don't see me wanting to bet on Elise Reed in any capacity here. A first fight coming up, there's just too much against her there. So definitely keep your eye on Soraya Eubanks, how the weight cut looks on Friday morning, and maybe put that bet in there Friday afternoon, Saturday, or maybe as close to that weight cut as possible. I have about 2 more, but I want to give you guys an opportunity to let me know what you think of that one.
I personally love the pick. I totally agree. The weight cut is going to be super important. We saw, that the example you used about some fighters coming in a little bit heavier. We saw that in the Yana Kunitskaya fight at UFC 264. I can't remember her opponent off the top of my head, but she came in like 5, 6 pounds heavier.
Irene Aldana.
Oh, yeah, Irene Aldana, yeah.
Yeah, she came in significantly heavier, and we saw exactly the impact of that extra weight against Yana Kunitskaya. So I totally agree with you there. Marcellus, what are you thinking?
Pretty much, if we're talking picks on the prelim card, the one that really stuck out to me is the main prelim fight. You got Punahele Soriano versus Brendan Allen. The Soriano, it looks like he's making – he didn't make his debut. He's already fought in the Dana White Initiative. He made his win in there. Most of his fights have been by finish, 5 by knockout or TKO, and 2 by submission. Only 1 loss on his record. So he's a high prospect. I made it like him. I'm liking to see this little drift you're seeing right now with the Hawaiian crowd jumping in UFC and really put on a high performance in the UFC's rankings. But he's fighting a tough dude coming out of Sanford MMA, Brendan Allen. And that dude, like what I've been seeing with Sanford's work at Sanford MMA, they've been changing fighters. I remember I'd be watching some previous fighters that weren't in their gym before. Like either they were doing good but had some like holes in their game where they were repeatedly exposed in their next fights. But then when they jump over to Sanford MMA, I'm seeing quick changes. Like they're becoming good Dutch-style kickboxers and some good wrestling backgrounds, either on the defensive side or offensive side. So that fight, as far as the pick goes, it's hard for me to pick because I'm super interested in how these guys go at it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the point about Sanford MMA. One great example of that would probably be Gilbert Burns.
Of course.
Really known for his jiu-jitsu, earlier in his career. He goes over to Sanford, and all of a sudden this man is throwing punches like his hands are made out of brick. So great example there. I love it. I'm kind of against Brandon Allen in that fight. But, we'll see. I definitely agree with your take there, man.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I think that's a really close fight. It's a tough one to call. I may pick Brandon Allen in that one. I'm sitting here and I'm looking at his resume, and it jumps off the page. Let's be honest. He has a rear naked choke sub of Kevin Holland in 2019. He has a KO of Tom Breeze in 2020. Comeback, beat Kyle Dukakis. Now we talk about how there can only be one really good sibling at a time, and right now it's Chris. Not to say that can't change, but Kyle's going to be Chris was going to be fighting on this card. Kyle's going to be at home. So, still a Dukakis brother. We'll give that to him. Loss against Sean Strickland. We've seen Sean Strickland go on to do some pretty solid things, and then a win over Carl Robinson. So, he got back, out of the off the schneid, if you will. I don't know. I kind of want to pick Brandon Allen here, but I think I want to stay away from that fight and just kind of watch it and enjoy it.
Exactly. It'll definitely be an entertaining fight because, like you said, he's got a track record of good names on his resume. He's definitely been battle tested. This guy has mainly been a finisher in the first rounds from what I've seen. So it's going to be hard to tell how that even goes. If he makes it past the first round, then it may go to Brendan Allen, in my opinion. But if it gets out of there early in the first, you know who that's going to.
Yeah, absolutely agree. So, Tom, who's your next lock for us?
I got two more, and I'm going to run through them real quick. Wait, we said is Mickey Gall's leading off the main card, right?
Okay. Yeah, on the main card, yep.
So the two I got Adrian Yanez over Randy Costa. I like Randy Costa. I think this is a matchup that maybe in 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years we'll see again. I think this is, maybe similar to the early version of Dustin Poirier versus Conor McGregor, the early version of Nick Diaz versus Robbie Lawler, and that we could see this later on. Although in this fight right here, I'm picking Adrian Yanez. And the reason I say that is I think Yanez just has a little bit better of a stand-up game. I think he manages his distance a little bit better. And something that I noticed is, people say that fighting, it's almost like a dance, and there's a bit of a rhythm to it. And Yanez throws punches on what you could equate to as the offbeat. Kind of like Max Holloway. He'll give you, throw a combination, and then on the way out give you another 1-2 or give you something else. Just, thanks for coming. So I think he's good at throwing punches that people aren't expecting. Let me look at the length matchup. Randy Costa has, a slight reach advantage, but again, I still want to go with Adrian Yanez. I like him in this fight. He's got some wins over some solid names. He has more experience. I think it'll definitely be a close fight, but I think Costa absolutely has the possibility of going out there, being able to piece up the legs, piece up the body, use that length. But I think the ultimate differentiator in this fight specifically is going to be the hand speed of Yanez. So that's that fight. And then to roll into my next one, not to take up too much time here, I think Ian Heinisch is going to get the win over Nassourdine. Nassourdine had a close loss to Phil Hawes, but Ian had a close loss to Kelvin Gastelum. And I'm going to take a close loss to Kelvin Gastelum over a close loss to Phil Hawes. Also, Ian Heinisch, he's a really good grappler, and I just don't see Nassourdine Imavov out-grappling him. I think Nassourdine has an opening to get landed on the chin in the first rounds, and Heinisch has a good tank. He's got good power, and he's got a really good chin. He's coming off a couple losses, and he's really trying to stay relevant here. He doesn't want to take another loss and go and have to fight maybe an up-and-comer or somebody who's undefeated and a new person in and kind of feed him to the wolves there. So I think there's a lot on the line for Ian Heinisch. That being said, the added pressure could be a negative, or some people rise to the challenge. Either way, I'm going to pick Ian Heinisch over Nassourdine Imavov. What do you guys think to those two pick, Heinisch and Adrian Yanez?
Love them. I'll definitely be rolling with you on the Heinisch pick. 100% agree with you there, and with your other pick as well. I'm with you 100% tonight, Tom. You're doing a great job.
Yeah, I'm with you on both of those picks, especially on Heinisch, because he's another one, just like Allen over there, changing his whole game over at Sanford MMA. So they're both. You might see a 2-0 record for Sanford MMA on that night.
Definitely agree, man. That gym is legit. So now we're going to jump into the main card. First up, we've got Mickey Gall versus Jordan Williams. It looks like Mickey Gall's coming in around like plus 145. Jordan Williams coming in around minus 175. Listen, I'll tell you this. Mickey Gall and Jordan Williams, they are very similar in size. They're just about the same age. Mickey Gall is 29. Jordan Williams is 30. But the biggest advantage that Jordan Williams has over Mickey Gall is that Mickey Gall does not have any KO power whatsoever. Jordan Williams is a grinder. He's a really heavy cardio training type of guy. On average, his fights tend to last, on average, 5 minutes longer than Mickey Gall's. So he's got a lot more time in the octagon. And usually Mickey Gall's fights are ending early as of late because he's getting chinned or he's getting subbed. So, and then another thing we got to look at too is that Mickey Gall has had a really long layoff, much longer than Jordan Williams. Mickey Gall hasn't fought since June of 2020, so this marks over a year that he's fought last. Williams fought back in October of 2020, still a significant time off. But Mickey Gall, ring rust is going to be a thing here for Mickey Gall. It's been over a year. Some numbers, on the stat sheet, Williams has a higher number of significant strikes. He's hitting at 6 per minute as opposed to Mickey Gall, who's only going for 2. I will say this, Mickey Gall, and this is why I like the call out, by Marcellus over Mickey Gall. Dude, Gall has been losing to older, on their way out UFC fighters like Mike Perry and Diego Sanchez. The only significant win and like overwhelming win that Mickey Gall ever had was over CM Punk. And we all know CM Punk and who he is and what he's about. That's the only reason that Mickey Gall ever looked impressive. So I'm taking Jordan Williams here. Feels like a lock. It's about a semi-lock. I really like Jordan Williams in this one. Tom, what do you think there?
Yeah, I really like Jordan Williams as well. I'm from New Jersey. Mickey Gall is from New Jersey. He's from Greenbrook. He trained right around where I live. I mean, I'm in Virginia now. Actually, I'm not in Virginia. I'm in Montana. Nobody wants to know where I live. Listen, at the end of the day, I don't want to pick against Mickey Gall. I like Mickey Gall. I like what he's about. I wish he was just better. And I don't see him winning this fight. I don't know if I want to call it a lock. You know, the 1 year layoff isn't great. But, you know, Jordan Williams coming from 9 months. So is that 3 months a real big difference? I don't know. Jordan Williams coming off that split decision loss. Or was it a split decision or was it a unanimous decision? It was a unanimous decision loss to Nasruddin Imavov, the guy we were just talking about. So ultimately, I am going to go with Mickey Gall I'm going to go with Jordan Williams. But, you know, my heart's not in it.
Mm-hmm. No, I hear you. I feel like I'm a lock as well with Jordan Williams because it's just like you said, he's a good, well-rounded fighter, and Mickey Gall has been losing to some old vets that they feel like he could have possibly beat. And from his overall game, for what I've watched in those previous fights, not much improvement. And like you said, like he's more noticeable when he fought CM Punk. We can't forget too, he beat a good contender, Sage Northcutt, before he went to ONE FC. So that was another kid that was on the same, I would say on the same level as Gall, but a top prospect. But both are still green in this game. Haven't really fought too much in the MMA scene. Plus, like, I remember looking back at Gall's record too. Right before he fought Mike Jackson, he didn't really start competing in MMA until 2015. So it's not a long time in the game of any martial arts. So definitely still has plenty of time to improve. Maybe he's made those differences in this whole layoff, but sometimes that you don't see that being the case. So I'm going with Jordan Williams on this one.
All right, so we're all in agreement there. I love the pick personally. I'm like feeling like you just said, Marcellus, semi-lock. You know, by the time that Saturday rolls around, it might be a full lock. Jordan Williams for the win, man. So next up on this main card, we have two of my favorite young female fighters out there right now. We got Macy Barber coming in at +110 versus Miranda Maverick coming in around -140. Depending on where you look, Miranda Maverick has been on fire lately. She keeps winning a lot by decision, so I do think that that's the way that this fight's going to go. You look at both of these women, they're both very similar in size and in age. Macy Barber's slightly taller than Miranda Maverick. Macy Barber, though, is just so much, like, far less skilled and far less technical than Miranda Maverick. Mm-hmm. Now, on paper, they both land a similar number of strikes and takedowns. Miranda Maverick has a slight edge in the takedown department. I think she's hitting at 80% over Macy Barber 75%. But then when they're standing up, Maverick knows how to stay at range, use her reach, and then she does a very good job of mixing. Yeah.
Macy Barber does a very good job at managing range, so much to the point where she was basically shadow boxing 10 feet away from Alexa Grasso. So if we want to talk about managing range and not getting hit, I think the advantage goes to Macy Barber.
Well, Macy Barber still lost that fight to Alexa Grasso by decision. Okay. And good joke. I love it, but no, absolutely not. Miranda Maverick actually will touch her opponents up while being far away. Like, she knows how to maintain that distance. She likes to mix in kicks a lot and really just keep her opponent guessing. And then another thing she likes to do is one of my favorite moves, and when she's feeling the takedown is available, she'll throw like a big overhand strike and move right into a takedown, usually double legs. I love it. And then Macy, like you beat me to my point. She just throws aimless strikes out in space. Like, yeah, I understand you're a fighter. You want to throw punches, but at least make sure that they're effective and, like, you're not just wasting your energy out there, which is exactly what you did against Alexa Grasso. Like I said, they're both good at getting takedowns. But Miranda Maverick is so much better than Maycee Barber when they actually do get to the canvas. Like, she likes to move around. She uses a lot of transitions, and her ground and pound game is actually very, very solid for such a young fighter. One thing that we do have to look out for, though, in that realm is that Maycee Barber could improve her wrestling, right? She's been working with Ben Askren at his wrestling academy the past couple of months since her last fight. I think she knows that that's a realm where she was starting to struggle a little bit. So that's definitely one thing to look out for, is a possible improvement in the wrestling game. But I still love Miranda Maverick in this fight. It's tough for me to pick against Macy because I do like her quite a bit too. But Miranda is just making strides of improvement over Maycee Barber. I think in the coming years, depending on how everything shakes out, Miranda Maverick will probably end up being a top contender. Tom, what do you got for us there?
I'm taking Miranda Fear the Maverick over Maycee the Future Barber. Macy is good in real scrappy fights, but Maverick she's much more technical. She has much more reach. She has much more experience. Well, maybe she doesn't have much more reach, actually. I don't know. Hard to say. Some sites say that she's got a decent reach advantage. Some say that she doesn't. So not too sure about that one. Either way, I think she's the much more technical fighter. I think she's a better stand-up fighter. As far as we've seen, she's the better grappler as well. Listen, and another one of my, like, if this happens, then this must happen. If you lose to Roxanne Modafferi, I just really can't bet on you moving forward. And unfortunately, that's the case for Maycee Barber, losing to Roxanne Modafferi by unanimous decision a year and a half ago. Not to say that she obviously couldn't improve. At only 23 years and 2 months old, she had that fight at 21. So definitely a forgivable loss. But I'm rolling with my with my little rules here about the siblings, about bumping buffer, about the weight cut, all that stuff. In this one, I'm going with Miranda Maverick. Looking at Tapology. They, I guess, aren't. Oh, yeah, here we go. Looking at Tapology of 1,200 votes, we have Maverick, 75% of that, 76 says by decision. The other 25% taking Barber, 64 of those by decision. So you may want to take a nice, put a little bit of money on the over on this fight. But yeah, I'm riding with you. I'm going Maverick, and maybe Maverick by decision just to sweeten that line a little bit. Since, I mean, she's only a minus 150 favorite. I'm sure you can find her, a little bit better. I see some spots have her at minus 135. So probably a pretty good value there, especially if you're going to take her by decision. So I'm going with Miranda Maverick.
Exactly. I think I'm going to be following that train as well when it comes to that, because one, Maycee Barber is falling on that category as well, just like all North Carolina. Very young competitors and very green still. You can tell, just like in that Grasso fight, like, she definitely was showing some fight back, but she fought with so much emotion, which is making her striking not look as clean as it should be, considering where she comes from, what gym she trains at. Because you're trained over at Rufus Sport, you should be sharp with your striking. And as far as your wrestling goes, you're working at Ben Askren's academy. So let's see if you can make any sort of improvement within that time frame. But part of me I want to go with the vet on this one, Miranda. Miranda Maverick's going to take this one. She knows how to play the game well, good with striking, good with the grappling, going to play this out in the decision.
I love it. We're all in accordance so far with all of our picks. Makes me feel good, man. So the next one we got Kyler Phillips versus Raulian Paiva. So let's look at the odds for that. We got Kyler Phillips. It looks like minus 270-ish, depending on where you're looking. Raulian Paiva, plus 215. It depends on where you're looking, which book you got. Excuse me. So both these guys very similar in size and height. But Kyler Phillips has a almost 3-inch reach advantage over Raulian Paiva. That's going to be a big factor in this one. Kyler Phillips won his last fight against Song Yadong, who's obviously a very skilled fighter. And Song actually landed a lot of punches to the head against Kyler Phillips, but very much like Chris Mutino, kept taking those and just walking right back at Song Yadong. Oh, excuse me. Kyler Phillips, he mixes in takedowns very, very well, especially during striking combos. So he'll throw 2 at you, and then he'll go and take your legs. Paiva, wow. Sheesh.
Forfeit?
No, not at all. Unless you're taking Paiva, I do want to hear your points here. But listen, Kyler Phillips mixes in those takedowns very well. He'll throw two at your face and then immediately go for a double leg. Very much like I was saying about Miranda Maverick. And Paiva's not nearly as good of a grappler. He's lost by decision just being purely like smothered up against the cage and on the ground. One very important thing we have to keep in mind for this one, Paiva took this one on very short notice. Moving up to bantamweight, probably doesn't care as much about a win because it doesn't affect his rankings, his overall career, and where he's looking to go in the UFC. So I don't know if the same motivation is there. I like Kyler Phillips a lot. I don't know how it's going to happen. He's got a lot of knockouts and submissions under his belt. If I had to call a method, I would probably say by knockout. You know, once he gets like the threat of the takedown in there, he might start to scare Paiva a little bit of the takedown and potentially maybe fake something, go up top, and just clock Paiva. But I'll leave that up to Kyler Phillips to decide on Saturday, but I am rolling with him here. Tom, what do you think? Is he frozen on your screen too?
Oh, yes, he's frozen. I see that now.
All right, well, what do you think? Oh, he is. What do you think?
Well, pretty much just like you were saying, like he's a good – what I noticed with both these guys, they're both almost similar with their striking exchanges. They're both pretty technical, but you could tell out of the two who's the more better at being aggressive when it comes to that long-distance striking. That's definitely going to Kyler Phillips. But what's Paiva, he's good at keeping range. So let's see if he can keep that range with his striking and just throw enough to keep him from coming forward and be able to see those takedowns from coming in. But something tells me with the way that Phillips fights, he's not going to give him any space that whole time. He's going to be constantly staying on it with the striking, mixing in the wrestling. Could even possibly get a submission work in there, but I'm going what you said. I'm going for a straight knockout, and possibly in the second. That's how I feel it's going to go. It's knockout in the second round.
I like that a lot, dude. I love the pick. Thank you for agreeing with me on everything. That it makes you feel good, man. You know
you're making smart points. I'm seeing the same things. So right. I see that as well.
I love it, dude. So, Tom, can you hear us?
I can hear you now. Can you hear me? I'm back.
Yeah, I can hear you now. So we both just got done talking about Kyler Phillips and why we think he's going to win. Shock us and take Raulian Paiva. Come on.
No. I think Kyler Phillips is really good at striking the grapple, or striking the clinch to takedown. He's a bigger guy. He's good at takedowns. He's not bad at standing up either. He trains with Sean O'Malley, even though I'm not particularly a fan of Sean O'Malley. I'm not exactly sure, like you were saying, Keith, before I so rudely left. I'm not exactly sure why Paiva took this fight after wanting to fight David Dvorak at the weight class below. I'm not sure if he's looking for a payday, but, like I said, moving up to a weight class that you're not used to, fighting at a weight that you're not used to. I mean, Marcellus, you could say this better than anyone. When you get heavier, you add more weight. The timing of things are all off. Like your arms are heavier. Your body's a little different. I think it takes a little bit of time to get used to a different weight. Doing it on short notice, I don't know if it's going to maybe work out well. Now, some people can do it because, they fight at 135, they fight at 125, they fight at 145. They're used to being in those different weight classes. But when you're coming in a fight in a new weight class on short notice that you haven't had experience at before, it makes me less likely to want to pick you. So I'm rolling with Kyler Phillips.
Exactly. To add on to your point about the weight adjusting and all that, I've only fought at 170 twice. One was when I won my second bout at middleweight at the Southeast Regional ISK Championship fight. And that was really kind of a short notice one as well because I wasn't even supposed to fight on that weight that day. My opponent couldn't make the weight by another pound, and they requested, hey, can you gain 1 pound to go to this next division? I'm like, screw it, let me go get my water. I drink that, and we go put on the next 3 pounds, so now we're at middleweight, which is technically 170 in kickboxing. So in MMA, in this last one, it was that welterweight. So that's where I felt my true test because that fight, I felt pretty slow. I took the first 2 rounds off, and I had to explode the next 3. I knew I needed to win the last 3 in order to do something. I just wanted to feel him out those first 2 and take over the rest. But point being made, all I pretty much knew was I tested that weight class beforehand and then did it again later on.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I'm sure it just makes sense to everybody, but now that we have you here, you can confirm it. when you do move up to those higher weight classes, especially when it's like a 10-pound difference, you're used to fighting at featherweight, you move up to bantamweight. Those guys at bantamweight probably hit a little bit harder than what you used to too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so exactly. I don't think it'll work out too well for Paiva this weekend.
No, I don't think so either.
So next up, we got Macy Chiasson coming in at plus 165 versus Aspen Ladd at minus 195. I'm rolling with Aspen Ladd here, and I'll tell you how I think it's going to happen. I think it's going to happen by submission, personally. I think that she's got extremely good grappling. She has a very strong grappling advantage, not really on paper, but when you go back and watch fights, she's much better than Macy in that realm. She's not nearly as big as Macy, but I have a feeling, I don't really have too much to back it up here. It's more so gut, and you'll see me using my gut for the final pick in this as well over what my brain is telling me to do. But I really like Aspen Ladd here. She's got all sorts of wins under her belt. She's got 67% of them coming from KO. But I just have a feeling she's going to end this one early by submission. She's got 80% takedown accuracy, so she loves to go for them, and she lands them a lot. And her submission average per 15 minutes is 1.71, so she's clearly attempting a lot of submissions. I have a feeling this is going to be the week where she's able to lock something up, maybe a choke or snatch a limb from Macy. But, yeah, Aspen Ladd, I'm going to take her for submission. Tom, what do you think?
I'm also taking Aspen Ladd. I'm not necessarily saying it's going to be a submission. I could see this maybe being a unanimous decision with her spending a lot of time on ground, a lot of time on top. She's smaller, but she's stronger. She's the better grappler. Her only loss was basically a quick drop. She came into the fight, unfortunately, as we saw with me getting kicked out unceremoniously, having to come back. I'm having a bit of Wi-Fi issues, so I'm trying to pull up the name. It was Durandamine is when she came in. She came in and she lost, I think it's somewhere like in the first minute or so. Sometimes you can get set up and you can lose in the first minute. Other times you can lose in the first minute. It's like, oh, you make one mistake or you correct one mistake, and that doesn't happen. So I'm not as – and like we were saying, as a 26-year-old, this happened when she was 24, 25 years old, still growing into her body, growing into MMA, learning the sport. That's forgivable, in my opinion, especially when it's against someone like Juliana Durandamine. I just guessed at her first name. I think that's right, but I could be wrong.
Jermaine Durandamine.
Jermaine Durandamine. Okay, I was like 80% of the way there. I'm sorry, Jermaine, for that. Either way, I like Aspen Ladd in this. Chiasson's performance against Marion Renaud, she didn't look well. That didn't age well either, that fight, as we saw Renaud come out at, 44 years old and get a walloping put on her. She did okay in a fight enough to get the win, but it wasn't a dominant performance in the way that you would want it to be to give you confidence moving forward. I think the ground and pound is going to be a big advantage here for Aspen Ladd. And in women's fights, having that ability to take them down, be on the ground, and beat them up on the ground, keep a top position, that's more impactful. I don't know why, but the judges see that as more impactful than for whatever reason in men's. So for all of those reasons, I see Aspen Ladd winning this by unanimous decision. I could also potentially see, maybe a second or third round TKO on the ground. Regardless, I'm going to go with Aspen Ladd.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this one was really hard for me because looking into the resumes of both women, they both fought similar opponents and both had good outcomes in their fights. But I'm always a big fan. The last time I made a point like this was when Derek Brunson and Israel Adesanya fought each other. I looked at their track records, and they both were going in there like they were going to finish each other. But I go by who had the better performance out of everybody they faced. Adesanya had the better performances against guys like Anderson Silva and Brad Tavares. He's had more finishes, and if not better performances against those guys than Brunson did. So I knew going in there, Adesanya was going to take the win, whether it be by finish or not. So when I look at this fight, and they both fought similar opponents, like you said, Ladd's a finisher. Ladd goes for the finish, and she hasn't really truly been tested in the later rounds. I feel like that could have possibly played a factor in this fight. But looking back at those fights again, like, no, I don't see that happening. It could go second or third TKO round finish for Aspen Ladd because Chiasson, like you said, she not the best outcome with Renau in the last fight, so I'm going to go with Ladd on this one.
And I'm going through I'm looking at Aspen Ladd's previous fights. Yana Kunitskaya, TKO win in the third round. She did have the loss to Jermaine Durandamine, but like we said, that came 16 seconds into the fight. So then she has a win over Saraya Eubanks in 2019. Say what you want. We were talking about Saraya Eubanks being at 135, not being her true weight. Still a solid fighter nonetheless, taking a unanimous decision win in 5 minutes or 15 minutes there. So, proving that she does have the tank. She can get it done by unanimous decision. So that's why I'm kind of on the fence here. But I like Aspen Ladd a lot. And then you go and you look at the people that Macy Chiasson has fought, and it's just nowhere near a comparable resume as Aspen Ladd. So I think you could take Aspen Ladd and knock on wood, feel pretty comfortable about that bet.
Well, she got to go with the girl that looks like Arya Stark from Game of Thrones. So I always call her that every time I see her, like, nah, that's not Aspen Ladd. That's Arya.
It's Arya Stark.
Oh, yeah.
I love that. The Night King killer. I love it, dude.
Uh-huh.
So we're going to move on to the final fight, the main event on this pretty nice card. Mm-hmm. It's Corey Sandhagen versus TJ Dillashaw. So we got TJ Dillashaw making a comeback after I believe the last time he fought was January of 2019. I could be wrong, but it's almost 2 years off. Let me pull up the odds on this one because I'm seeing stuff all over the map. The book I use has Corey Sandhagen coming in at -190, TJ Dillashaw coming in at +160. I can't imagine that the actual odds look too different than that. But if you guys have something different, let me know, man. But
pretty much across the board, I have between 185 and -185 and -195 in favor of Corey Sandhagen. TJ Dillashaw, the best I have for him is +152. The worst I have is +165. So, I mean, the books seem to be in agreement across the board that Sandhagen is the favorite, TJ Dillashaw the underdog, but not by a very wide margin.
Mm-hmm. Well, you guys can – I know you're probably going to disagree with me, and this will be the first time in this show that we're all going separate ways. But, dude, I'm taking TJ Dillashaw here. This could be some fan bias because – when I was really starting to pick up speed and really starting to get into the UFC back in my early high school days, TJ Dillashaw was that guy, Killashaw, he was the guy. And I do think coming in here that ring rust could play a factor. Corey Sandhagen is more aggressive than he's ever been in his career. He lost to Aljamain Sterling and all of a sudden he became a different guy. I just think TJ Dillashaw, he never lost that belt. And I have a feeling that he's back to reclaim it. The competition in this division has gotten way better since he's been there. You got guys like Peter Yan up on top, who are very much similar in style to him. But my main point here is that TJ Dillashaw used Corey Sandhagen as a sparring partner to prepare for Dominic Cruz. Sandhagen presents a very similar style. He uses similar footwork. He's a lankier striker. He's gotten more aggressive since those days. He's not as laid back as Dominic Cruz seemed to be at that time. But I don't know. It's just gut over anything. I think and it's not just me that thinks this. It's very obvious. TJ Dillashaw has a very strong wrestling advantage over Corey Sandhagen. You look at how Aljamain beat him, basically just climbed on his back and rear naked choked him, right? And I would like to think that TJ Dillashaw is going to come out, expose the bad wrestling that Corey Sandhagen has. He's going to finish him, or he's just going to win by smothering him for maybe the last 3 rounds of this matchup. A lot of people are saying Corey Sandhagen is too good of a striker for TJ Dillashaw. That is possible. I mean, this is not a lock by any means. It's a tough one, man. I mean, I'm having a hard time even making points for TJ Dillashaw over here, but I just have this feeling that he's going to win it. My gut leads me in the right direction about 75% of the time, so I'm locking in TJ Dillashaw as my pick on this one. Tom, I see you shaking your head already, so I know you're taking Corey. Tell us why I'm wrong.
Well, 2.5 years off is a long layoff. And I know that you talked about, last week how we saw, what's her name, come back 5 years of a layoff?
5 years, yep.
Misha came back. Marion Renault was not on the same level of competition that Corey Sandhagen is. It did kind of change my mind about layoffs and things like that. That's my main point there. Just that when you have someone of this caliber, like TJ Dillashaw was that guy. He got chinned a few times, but
he's chinny. Yeah,
he is chinny. I just think that he's gonna be able to expose Corey Sandhagen's wrestling. Corey Sandhagen is not a wrestler by any means. If it was up to him, he'd be fighting on his feet the entire time, but it's not entirely up to him. And I think TJ Dillashaw is going to lead the dance in that aspect. He's going to get in real tight, real close, make it really scrappy on the ground. So continue what you were saying, Tom. Sorry for cutting you off.
No, I'm with you. Listen, no, I'm not with you. I'm completely against you in every way on this pick. Corey Sandhagen, I think he's a much taller guy. I mean, he's going to come in there at 5-6 inches taller. Most of that hip down. So he's got really, really long legs. He's only got a 1 or 2, maybe 3 inch reach advantage, but he's probably got a 6 or 7 inch like kick advantage. And for a guy whose specialty is kicking and to be that long and that lanky in a 135 division, I mean, I really like Sandhagen. I like the mental switch that he's changed in the last few fights here. I don't know if it was after the loss to Aljamain where he just said, screw this, just trying to improve. I want to go in there, and whoever I face, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to murder you. You're going to have problems. And he went on Joe Rogan. He talked about that mentality switch, how he's just a vicious person now. And he talked about how his wife and his mom, or his girlfriend and his mom, get like scared of like his mentals. And they're like, yeah, don't tell people that thought that you just told me. That's psychopathic behavior. But you can't argue with the results. I mean, wheel kick KO of Marlon Moraes, flying knee KO of Frankie Edgar, which may be one of the best flying knees we've seen in the UFC, bar maybe George Masvidal. Those are your top 2. Corey's got big wins. Long, lanky guy. KO power. Super technical. TJ is, I don't see TJ overcoming a 2.5-year layoff without professional bouts against a surging Corey Sandhagen entering his prime as TJ is leaving his prime. He's 35 years old. If he had been competing, maybe he could still keep this as his prime. But at 35, at 25, at 45, we see these guys 35, 36. That's when the wheels fall off. Maybe middleweight, or maybe even welterweight, but definitely middleweight, light heavyweight for sure. You can hit your prime at 35. When you're at the 135-pound division, 35 is borderline ancient, really. And Corey Sandhagen coming in at 29, coming in with all of the hype around him, I think he's got all. And also, let's not say this, I don't know how much is going to affect it, but the reason this card is now instead of 2 months ago or a month and a half ago is because TJ Dillashaw got hit in the eye in training, had a giant gash, and probably had a pretty solid concussion. So the layoff with that, after getting back into it after being off for 2.5 years, I mean, listen, there is everything in the world that's stacked against TJ Dillashaw here. He could pull it out, right? It's MMA, it's UFC. We've seen crazy things every card. There's something unbelievable that happens. I just don't think this is going to be the one, the fight where it does. He's got the length advantage with the feet that he's really, really good at. I think I just don't see how TJ's a little bit wild. TJ's a little bit crazy when he comes in there. And Sandhagen against a technical guy with a reach advantage, that doesn't typically mesh too well. Then you add that he's 35. You add the layoff. You add the surging Sandhagen. You add he's 29. I don't see him losing, but because it's so heavily, everything seems to be in the Sandman's corner, I don't know if I want to bet on this, to be honest with you, because, I mean, every time things seem to stack up to be like, yeah, Corey Sandhagen's going to win, they don't win. So I'm still picking Corey Sandhagen, but not with my wallet. A little nervous.
Oh, yes. I'm always a big fan of that. I never pick these fights with my money because I know everybody should know in the MMA scene anything can happen in this game. So the guy you think is going to win could possibly lose. He has the better track record, but the guy with the less track record takes the guy with the biggest payday and win. But adding on to the points, you guys made two perfectly good points. The layoff could play a factor. He still never lost his belt at the top. But the main thing I'm concerned with is his mind coming in this week, TJ Dillashaw. And you can tell he's being tested this week with all the interviews because the main thing that everybody's asking about, how do you feel coming to this fight without EPO? How do you feel about that? And I know people that have done steroids in the MMA game or even in kickboxing and other sports, their mentality changes when they try to come back and they go into their performances. You see it in everybody. Prime example, John Jones. He looks good right now. He's winning, but he doesn't look like what he did before. He's having these tough fights with middleweights coming up a weight and having struggles. So that makes me question how he does at heavyweight. Same situation with Dillashaw. He's been out 2 years because of the EPO, and he looks still good, still ripped. You could possibly guess he's probably still using, but you never know. So when I look at that, and on paper, he's got the skills. He's got the striking. He's got the wrestling. He's the picture-perfect fighter to win this fight against Corey Sandhagen. Because one, Sandhagen's got good striking too. He's got good jiu-jitsu, but he doesn't have the best wrestling when it comes to Dillashaw's track record. But ring wrestling won't play a huge factor, I would say. The mentality game will be a big factor in this fight. And that's where I see Corey having the advantage in the mental aspect of this fight. Physically, he may have a disadvantage, but mentally, he's going to win this fight.
That's a really good point. I didn't even consider that. You know, the fact that, yeah, TJ Dillashaw, I don't know how long he was using, the EPO and whatever other, PEDs he might have been on throughout his career that he didn't get popped for. But that's 100% correct. You know, at the very least, he used him to fight Henry Cejudo and still got chinned by him, still got knocked out. So, yeah, that's tough. You know, it could have gotten to his head. That's a very good point. But I'm still riding with TJ
Dillashaw.
Yeah, I'm still riding with TJ Dillashaw here. You made a good point, Tom, about how when it looks like everything is favoring one guy, the other guy somehow can pull it out and win it. I have a feeling that TJ Dillashaw, this is going to be a big comeback party for him. And it automatically puts him back into like the top 5 at that point, at the very least. I would like to imagine he's going to be back like he never left.
There's no question.
If he goes in there and he KOs Corey Sandhagen, I don't really have a problem giving him a title shot, right? Mm-hmm. You know, people were talking about him coming back and getting a title shot immediately. I'm like, so that's some punishment, right? And I'm thinking about writing a blog article about why do we vilify TJ Dillashaw, but yet John Jones is still the pound-for-pound champion, even when he hasn't fought in I think like a year, maybe a year and a half. Is it gotten that long? I mean, and Marcellus, the reason I made a face at you when you're like, John still looks good, I was like, have you seen John? John looks fat. John doesn't look muscular. Somehow he's gaining weight on every part of his body except his calves. Like,
chicken leg.
I don't know how they're going to support his body soon. He may have actually. Oh, my God. So have we all seen the picture of Conor McGregor, John Jones, Chris Weidman, and Anderson Silva all hanging out together, and it's like the Broken Leg Club? Well, then you have John Jones who's going to come back at heavyweight with those freaking pegs. Oh, he's absolutely obliterating them.
Oh, my God.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that might be a cursed picture. Before we started filming, we were talking about different curses in the UFC, and that might be a cursed picture.
we just came up. Well, Tom just made up his own. There you go. He could be the next one to start this.
Oh man, but for John's sake, I hope he doesn't break his leg like that. It's been too long since he's fought, and that would be just another massive layoff. Maybe that would be the nail in the coffin for retirement.
Oh yeah.
But, we can run down our picks again real quick before we call an end to this episode. So, Tom, run us through your prelim locks one more time.
So, prelim locks, I like Soraya Eubanks, as long as she looks good on the scale and it wasn't too big of a cut. Adrian Yanez over Costa. Ian Heinisch over Nasruddin Imavov. Those are my prelim locks. I'm also going with not Mickey Gall. Going with Miranda Maverick.
Yep.
What was that?
Jordan Williams.
Yep. I'm going with Miranda Maverick. I'm going with we didn't talk about this one, but I'm going with Derek Minner over Darren the Damage Elkins. Reason being, I think Elkins is on a long losing downturn with bad losses. Minner just beat Terrence McKinney not too long ago, and Terrence McKinney is on a tear. We saw him come into the UFC and burst onto the scene. So when Marcellus was talking about look at resumes, who's done better? I like Derek Minner in that fight over Darren the Damage Elkins. Darren is getting old. Derek Minner heading much closer into his prime. I got Kyler Phillips over Julian Paiva, Aspen Ladd over Macy Chiasson, and Corey Sandhagen over TJ Not-So-Dillashaw.
Yeah, I think we all agreed on all those, and completely on me skipping over the Darren Elkins versus Derek Minner fight. But yeah, I love Derek Minner there. Same reasons, I think he's got some good wins over guys like Charles Rosa, who obviously isn't the best, but you look at Minner, good cardio, good striking, great grappling, and a really high fight IQ. He has 100% takedown accuracy somehow, and 85% of his wins have come by submission. So I would like him to win by submission here. I think that's a pretty valuable bet. We agreed on everything except I'm taking TJ Dillashaw. Yeah, so that's pretty much it for us. Do you guys have any last things that you guys want to say before we call an end to this great episode?
Well,
I think Marcellus is riding with me all the way through. Is that right?
Oh, pretty much riding all the way through, including the Sandhagen fight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
all right.
Well, I do want to say, Marcellus, thank you very much for joining us tonight. It was an absolute pleasure having you here. Hopefully, it's not too soon to call you a recurring guest, but we would like to have you back in the near future.
Oh, for sure. Anytime.
Absolutely. Love to hear it, man. Can't wait to see you fighting at the next level someday. Hopefully someday very, very, very soon, man.
Yeah. Times are coming. You never know. I can jump on any opportunity any moment.
Absolutely. Just pick up that phone call. You never know.
Of course.
Tom, thanks for joining me as always. Really appreciate it. Make sure you follow us on our Twitters. Our Instagrams are all going to be right here. Follow at Pickin' Fights on Instagram, @_ Pickin' Winners on Instagram and on Twitter. And check out pickinwinners.org for the blog. That's where the rest of our sports are. And any of our last-minute UFC picks, takes, opinions, they'll all be up there. Guys, thank you very much. Have a great night. It was great having you here.
You too, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity again, guys.
Thank you.
Comment, subscribe.
Yes.